The alien school's atmosphere changed the moment the doors slid open. It was supposed to be a normal day at Veller Interspecies Academy, but nothing felt normal now. A low, nervous murmur spread through the hallways. Tentacled students pulled. Their limbs closed. Feathered ones tucked their wings in tight. Even the reptilian warriors, usually loud and confident, kept their voices to a whisper. Teachers, who usually kept perfect posture, stood tense and still. A few exchanged quick, uneasy glances, like they knew something the students didn't. The principal, a tall insectoid with translucent wings, hovered near the door. He wasn't smiling. His compound eyes darted from one end of the hallway to the other, scanning for trouble. Then, without warning, the hallway fell completely silent. The door slid wider, and the principal stepped aside. From the shadows beyond the doorway, a figure emerged, tall, broad-shouldered, and moving with a slow, deliberate stride. His heavy boots struck the floor with a sound too sharp, too precise. Each step was like a countdown. His skin was a deep grayish tone, his eyes like chips of cold metal. Every movement spoke of control, dangerous predatory control. A few students gasped, others froze. Everyone had heard the rumors. This was him, the Deathworlder. Not just any Deathworlder, a killer. A being from one of the most dangerous planets in known space, where survival meant being strong, fast, and merciless. Predators there didn't just hunt for food, they hunted for sport. The figure didn't speak. His gaze moved across the room in a slow sweep, and it was like watching a targeting scanner lock onto potential prey. His eyes didn't wander. They calculated. Some students instinctively shrank back into their seats. One feathered alien dropped her stylus and didn't dare pick it up, and yet one person in the room was not afraid. Alex sat in the middle row, one boot propped lazily on the rung of his chair. He was the only human in the academy, a curiosity, an oddity, sometimes a problem. The moment the Deathworlder appeared, Alex didn't tense, he didn't whisper, didn't even blink. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, crossed his arms, and smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile that said, "I've been waiting for you." The Deathworlder stepped fully into the classroom, and the air seemed heavier. He wore a dark uniform with strange patches sewn into the sleeves, symbols from a world no one here dared visit. The principal cleared his throat, his wings flicking nervously. "Class, this is Kareth. He is transferred here from the Varrock Combat Academy on the recommendation of his." Kareth's head turned sharply, and the principal stopped mid-sentence. "Special recommendation," he finished quietly. Alex watched the exchange with mild amusement. Even the principal was afraid to finish his sentence. That said a lot. The Deathworlder walked between the rows of desks. The sound of his boots echoed in the tense silence. Students avoided his gaze, pretending to look at their datapads or notes. Alex didn't look away. Kareth's eyes narrowed slightly, noticing the human's stare. For a moment, neither moved. The rest of the room seemed to vanish. It was just predator and predator, watching, measuring. Alex's grin widened by a fraction. The teacher, pale, plant-like alien with leaf-shaped ears, tried to resume class. Her voice trembled slightly as she spoke. "Kareth, you may take the empty seat next to." She didn't get to finish. Kareth had already spotted it, an empty desk. Right next to Alex, he started walking toward it. Every step made the tension sharper. The students around Alex shifted uncomfortably. One reptilian student whispered under his breath, "He's dead. The human's dead." But Alex didn't move. He just sat there, watching Kareth approach, the same grin on his face. Kareth stopped beside the desk. For a moment, he simply stood there, towering over Alex. The two locked eyes again, unspoken challenge passing between them. Alex tilted his head slightly, seats free. The words were calm, almost bored. But there was an edge in them. Like a blade hidden under a cloth, Kareth lowered himself into the chair without breaking eye contact. He moved slowly, deliberately, as if daring Alex to flinch. Alex didn't. The class continued, though no one was really paying attention. All eyes kept drifting to the new predator in the room, and the human who seemed completely unfazed by him. The teacher's voice became background noise. The real lesson today was happening in silence. In the subtle glances and faint smirks exchanged between Alex and Kareth, at one point, Kareth leaned back, his massive shoulders almost filling the space behind his seat. He reached into his bag. The motion was slow, casual, but the way his clawed fingers moved made several students tense up again. Alex watched, his grin not fading. Kareth pulled something out, a small metal object. He rolled it between his fingers, glancing at Alex as if to gauge his reaction. Alex didn't react. He just leaned slightly closer. When the class ended, students hurried out, eager to escape the thick tension. The teacher avoided looking at either of them as she left, but Alex stayed seated, so did Kareth. The Deathworlder finally broke the silence. "You're human." It wasn't a question. Alex nodded once. "And you're Kareth." Kareth S. Eyes narrowed again, this time in curiosity. "They told me you'd be interesting." Alex chuckled. "They told me you'd be trouble." For a moment there was no hostility in Kareth's face, only something like respect. But it passed quickly, replaced by the cold, sharp look from before. He stood, towering over Alex once more. Without a word, he stepped forward. His gaze locked onto the human. Alex remained seated, looking up at him with that same dangerous grin. Kareth took one slow step closer, then another. His shadow fell across Alex's desk. The grin didn't fade, but the air in the room seemed to press down on them both. And then Kareth stopped right in front of him, looking down with eyes like sharpened steel. Without saying a word, he kept walking, but now his path was aimed directly toward Alex. The hallway outside the classroom was loud again, students whispering, rushing to their next lesson, pretending they hadn't just witnessed a silent duel between two predators. But inside the room, the tension still clung to the air like smoke. Alex didn't move. He was still sitting at his desk, one elbow resting lazily on the table. Kareth stood only a few steps away, his massive frame blocking the door. For a few seconds, they just looked at each other. Then Kareth turned slightly and stepped closer. The sound of his boots against the polished floor was slow and deliberate, not the stride of someone in a hurry, but the measured steps of a hunter who knows his prey can't escape. He didn't sit this time. Instead, he leaned against the desk beside Alex's, claws drumming lightly against the surface. The sound was soft, but sharp enough to cut through the background noise from the hallway. "So," Kareth's voice was low, deep, and rough, like a stone dragged across metal. "You're the one they warned me about." Alex raised an eyebrow, still wearing that infuriating grin. "They warned you about me?" His tone was light, mocking. "And here I thought I was supposed to be afraid of you." Kareth tilted his head, studying Alex like a puzzle he wasn't sure how to solve. His eyes, Predator's eyes, didn't blink often. They stayed fixed on Alex's face, scanning every micro-expression, every shift in muscle. Alex met the stare without flinching. Most people couldn't hold a Deathworlder's gaze for more than a few seconds. It was primal instinct, the mind screaming at the body to look away before the Predator saw too much.
Alex.
Wasn't most people. If anything, his grin widened. The longer Kareth looked at him. "Interesting," Kareth said finally. "I thought humans were fragile," Alex chuckled. "You think wrong?" Kareth's claws tapped the desk again, a steady rhythmic sound. He leaned forward slightly, lowering his voice. "Where I come from, if someone looks at me the way you do, it means they're challenging me." Alex shrugged. "Maybe I am." The Deathworlder's lips curled into something that was almost, but not quite, a smile. It wasn't friendly. It was the expression of someone who enjoyed the hunt. Other students began filing in for the next class. A few glanced toward Alex and Kareth, then quickly looked away. The plant-like teacher entered, shuffling her papers nervously. Pretending she didn't notice the silent standoff at the center of the room, Kareth finally moved away from the desk and slid into the seat next to Alex. The chair creaked under his weight as the lesson began. Alex could feel Kareth's presence beside him like a heat you couldn't ignore. Every few minutes, the Deathworlder's eyes would shift toward him, just long enough to remind Alex that the game wasn't over. Halfway through the class, Karth leaned closer. "Tell me something, human. Why are you here?" Alex didn't. Look away from his notes. "Why are you?" Kareth's voice dropped even lower. "Because I was sent." Alex glanced at him, catching the faint glint of something dangerous in his eyes. The corner of Kareth's mouth twitched again, not quite a smile, not quite a snarl. The rest of the class dragged on, but no one else in the room was focused on the lesson. Everyone's attention drifted back, again and again, to the strange sight of a human and a Deathworlder, sitting side by side, without one of them being in the infirmary. Near the end of the period, Kareth reached into his bag. The movement was slow, deliberate. A few students tensed. One even whispered, "Is he going to?" Kareth's hand emerged holding a small object, a polished fang strung on thin metal chain. The tooth was long, curved, and faintly yellowed with age. Dried brown stains clung to the base. He set it gently on the desk between them. "I keep this from my first kill," Kareth said. His voice was calm, but there was weight behind the words. "It reminds me of what happens when someone underestimates me." Alex looked at the tooth for a moment, then back at Kareth. "Nice trophy." Kareth's eyes narrowed. "Want to see how I got it?" Alex's grin returned, sharp as ever. "Maybe later. I don't like spoilers." For the first time, Kareth gave a short, quiet laugh, though it was the kind of laugh that promised trouble. The bell rang. Students rushed out, their voices rising again now that the class was over. But neither Alex nor Kareth moved right away. Kareth slipped the tooth back into his bag. "After school," he said, "we'll spar." Alex didn't hesitate. "Fine." The Deathworlder studied him for a long moment, then leaned in just close enough for only Alex to hear. "I don't spar to make friends." Alex met his gaze head-on. "Neither do I." As Kareth walked out, Alex leaned back in his chair. But before leaving the room entirely, the Deathworlder turned his head just enough to look at him one last time. That single glance was a promise. And Alex, instead of looking worried, just smiled. The Academy's cafeteria was noisy, full of voices, clattering trays, and the occasional burst of alien laughter. But at one table near the back, the noise seemed to fade. Alex sat there, lazily picking at the strange green and blue stew they served every Wednesday. Across the room, Kareth entered, his massive frame drawing attention like a black hole, pulling light. Every step the Deathworlder took made the crowd ripple. Students shifted in their seats, glancing at him, then quickly looking away. Kareth didn't go for food. He went straight for Alex. By the time Kareth reached the humans' table, the noise in the cafeteria had dimmed to a nervous hum. A few students nearby pushed their trays aside and found reasons to move elsewhere. Gah! Reth dropped something onto the table with a sharp clink. It was the same fang Alex had seen earlier. But now it had been polished until it gleamed. Kareth didn't sit. He stood over Alex, looking down at him with that cold, measuring stare. "In my culture," Kareth said, his voice carrying just enough for the surrounding tables to hear, "there is only one way to settle questions of strength." Alex looked at the fang, then up at Kareth. His grin was slow, deliberate. "Let me guess. A fight?" "Not a fight." Kareth's claws tapped the table once. "A test." The whole cafeteria was listening. Forks paused midair. Drinks stopped halfway to mouths. Kareth continued, his voice steady and deep. "After the last bell today, the training grounds. No rules, no teachers. You stand or you don't." Whispers broke out instantly. Even the reptilian warrior. Students looked uneasy. Everyone knew what no rules meant in predator culture. Someone usually left on a stretcher. Alex leaned back in his chair, studying Kareth for a moment. His voice was casual, almost lazy. "Sounds fun?" A few gasps came from nearby tables. Kareth's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes, surprise. He had expected hesitation, fear, maybe even refusal. But Alex wasn't just agreeing, he was smiling about it. Kareth picked up the fang and slipped it back into his belt. Good. Then you understand. I understand, Alex said. But here's the thing. Leaned forward just slightly, his voice dropping so only Kareth could hear. If you're going to test me, you'd better not hold back. You won't get a second chance. Kareth froze for half a second. It was subtle, but Alex caught it. That fractional pause before the Deathworlder straightened again. You're confident, Kareth said, his tone unreadable. I'm prepared, Alex replied. The Deathworlder's claws flexed once at his side. We'll see. Then he turned and walked away, every step heavy and deliberate. As soon as he left, the cafeteria erupted in whispers. Is the human crazy? Is going to get torn apart? No one survives a challenge like that. Alex ignored them. He finished his stew, stood up, and walked out like it was just another day. The rest of the school day dragged. Word of the challenge spread like wildfire. By the last class, nearly everyone knew, and students were already making their way to ward. The training grounds before the final bell even rang. When the bell finally did ring, Alex didn't rush. He gathered his bag, slung it over one shoulder, and headed out at a steady pace. Outside, the sun was low, painting the academy in long shadows. The training grounds were surrounded by a high metal fence, with open space in the center for combat drills. Normally, it was empty this late. But today it was packed. Hundreds of students were there lining the fence, sitting on benches, even climbing onto walls for a better view. Kareth was already waiting in the center, claws flexing, the fang hanging from his neck like a warning. He looked at Alex as the human stepped into the ring. You came, Kareth said. Of course, Alex replied. You invited me. A low hum of anticipation rolled through the crowd. Predator versus human. Deathworlder versus Deathworlder. Someone muttered, this is going to be quick. Another whispered, not for the human. Kareth took one step forward. No weapons. Alex nodded. Didn't bring any. Kareth's eyes narrowed. Then this will be fair. Alex's grin sharpened. I never said I was unarmed. The first time all day, Kareth's pupils contracted, the smallest sign of surprise. Then he dropped into a fighting stance, claws ready. The crowd went silent. The space between them felt electric. Every muscle coiled for movement. Kareth's. The voice was low, almost a growl. Show me, human. Alex adjusted his stance, still smiling. You first. The training grounds felt like another world. The late sun cast long shadows across the dirt, and the air was heavy with the scent of metal from the fence and the faint tang of ozone from the academy's energy barriers. Hundreds of eyes were locked on the center of the arena. Alex stood on one side, hands loose at his sides, the faintest grin on his face. Kareth stood opposite, claws flexed, his shoulders tense, his eyes fixed on his opponent like a hawk sighting prey. No teachers were here, no referees, no rules. The murmurs of the crowd faded into silence. Kareth moved first. It wasn't a slow approach this time. He exploded forward, covering the distance between them in a blink. His claws sliced through the air where Alex's head had been a fraction of a second earlier. Alex had stepped sideways, casual as if avoiding a falling leaf. The crowd gasped. Kareth spun, sweeping his leg low to knock Alex off balance.
Alex
Hopped over it with ease, landing lightly, and already stepping back into range. He didn't strike. Not yet. Kareth's eyes narrowed. You're fast, he said, circling. Alex smirked. And you're predictable. A ripple went through the audience. No one talked to a Deathworlder like that during a fight. Kareth lunged again, this time with both arms in a crisscross slash designed to overwhelm an opponent's guard. Alex ducked, the claws missing by inches, and pivoted behind him. Still, Alex didn't attack. He was studying Kareth, watching the way his shoulders moved before he struck, how his claws curled at certain angles, how his breathing shifted. Before each lunge, the crowd was restless now. Some shouted for blood, so others muttered in disbelief. Kareth, breathing harder, snarled, You think you can win without fighting back? Alex shrugged. Winning's not the point. The Deathworlder growled and charged again. This time, he faked a right slash and then swung his left claw low. A killing strike if it connected. Alex caught his wrist mid-swing. Gasps erupted around the arena. Kareth's eyes widened as he realized Alex's grip was like iron. He tried to yank free, but the human didn't budge. You hit hard, Alex said calmly, tightening his hold. But you leave openings. Kareth roared and twisted, trying to break free, but Alex pivoted with him. Using the Deathworlder's own momentum to throw him off balance, Kareth stumbled, catching himself with one hand in the dirt. The crowd erupted. No one had ever seen him pushed like that. Kareth rose slowly, chest heaving, eyes burning with fury and something else. Respect. This isn't over, he growled. Alex tilted his head. It's just getting started. They circled each other again, the crowd holding its breath. Kareth attacked with renewed ferocity, claws flashing in rapid strikes. Alex dodged most, blocked others, and when one strike came dangerously close, he stepped inside Kareth's guard and shoved him back with surprising force. The Deathworlder skidded in the dirt, his boots digging in to keep from falling. The energy in the arena shifted. It was no longer predator versus prey. It was predator versus predator. Kareth grinned for the first time. A sharp, dangerous smile. Good, he said. I was afraid you'd be boring. Alex returned the grin, eyes glinting. Oh, you haven't seen anything yet. The two stepped forward at the same time, and the next clash promised no one would walk away unscarred. The arena's dust hung in the air like a thin mist, glowing faintly in the evening light. Around the fence, the crowd was dead silent, too caught up in what they were seeing to even whisper. Alex and Kareth stood a few meters apart, hard, watching each other. No one had landed a decisive blow yet, but that was about to change. Kareth's grin widened, revealing sharp, predatory teeth. Move well, human. Better than I expected. Alex rolled his shoulders, still loose. Still relaxed? You hit hard, but that's all you've got. Kareth's eyes narrowed. That's all I need. He moved again, but this time his approach was different. No rush, no reckless lunging. He stalked forward slowly, steps measured. His gaze locked onto Alex like a hunting beast closing in. Alex didn't back up. Instead, he stepped forward. When they met in the center, Kareth struck first a feint high, then a clawed jab low. Alex twisted his body, letting the claws pass within centimeters of his ribs, then caught Kareth's wrist again. But this time, Kareth was ready. He snapped his other arm up in a vicious hook, forcing Alex to release his grip and duck away. The claws sliced through the air, missing his head by inches. The crowd gasped. The first real near hit of the fight. Kareth pressed forward with a flurry of strikes, each one faster and harder than before. Alex blocked some, sidestepped others, and took a glancing blow on his shoulder, the sharp edge of a claw tearing his sleeve and drawing a thin line of blood. It stung, but Alex barely reacted. Kareth's eyes lit with something fierce. You bleed, he said. Alex smirked. You should see what happens when I stop holding back. He moved differently now, not just dodging, not just countering. He attacked, a quick step in, an elbow to Kareth's side. A pivot out, a sharp kick to the back of his knee. Alex's strikes weren't as heavy as the Deathworlders, but they were precise, surgical. Each one landed where it hurt most. Kareth growled, spinning with a backhand slash. Alex ducked under it and drove his shoulder into Kareth's midsection. Forcing the bigger alien back a step, the crowd roared. For the first time, it wasn't clear who had the advantage. Kareth charged again, his claws sweeping wide. Alex stepped into the swing, grabbed his arm, and locked it in place. With a quick twist, he forced Kareth off balance and slammed him into the dirt. The ground shook with the impact. Gasps and shouts erupted all around them. Kareth pushed himself up, chest heaving, but Alex stayed close, his shadow falling. Across the Deathworlder, you fight like a predator, Kareth said, almost in disbelief. Alex tilted his head. Who says I'm not one? The Deathworlder stared at him for a long moment. Something in his gaze had shifted. Less hostility. More calculation. "You could have killed me just now," Karth said. Alex shrugged. "You weren't ready for that lesson yet." Kareth rose to his full height, towering over Alex again. The fight wasn't finished, but the crowd could feel the shift. This was no longer just a test of strength. It was becoming something else. Respect. Dangerous. Mutual respect. Kareth flexed his claws. "Again," he said. Alex smiled gladly. As they closed the distance for another exchange, the ground between them seemed to tremble. The crowd leaned forward, hungry for the next clash. But neither fighter noticed the shadow. It had just appeared on the far side of the arena fence. Someone else was watching. The roar of the crowd rose and fell with every movement in the arena. Kareth swung again. A wide, brutal slash meant to take Alex's head off. Alex ducked under it, swept his leg, forced the Deathworlder to stumble. But before Alex could press the advantage, Kurt surged forward, shoulder-checking him hard enough to send him sliding back through the dirt. They were evenly matched. Now, neither could land the decisive blow. Breathing hard, Kareth stepped back. "You fight like someone who's been in real wars." Alex brushed dust from his sleeve. "Maybe I have." The crowd shouted for them to continue. But Kareth's eyes weren't focused on Alex anymore. They were scanning the fence. Something moved there, a figure in dark clothing, still as a shadow. They weren't cheering. They weren't even watching the fight like the others. They were watching Alex. Kareth growled low in his throat. Alex noticed. "Something wrong?" The Deathworlder took a slow step closer, his voice just loud enough for Alex to hear. "Don't react, but we're not alone." Alex's grin faded slightly, though his eyes didn't leave Kareth. "Friend of yours?" "No," Kareth said, his tone colder now. "And not yours either." For a few more minutes they kept fighting, or at least they made it look like they were fighting. To the crowd, it was just more predator versus human action. But in between the feints and counters, Kareth spoke quietly. "They told me to test you, see if you were worth the trouble." Alex blocked a strike and stepped back. And Kareth lunged again, forcing Alex to dodge. "You are, which means you're in danger." Alex's voice stayed casual, but his eyes were sharper now. "From who?" Kareth's next strike missed on purpose, just so he could step closer. "Without the crowd noticing? From whoever sent me here in the first place? And that thing on the fence? I think they're here to finish the job." The match ended with no clear winner. Both fighters stepped back, breathing hard, glaring at each other not in hatred now, but in silent agreement. The teacher in charge of the training grounds, who had finally arrived after hearing the noise, declared the fight over. The crowd groaned in disappointment, but began to scatter as the students left. Kareth stayed close to Alex. "Meet me tonight. Dorm level 3, storage room. We talk then." Alex gave a small nod. "Fine. But if this is a trap..." Kareth's teeth showed in a humorless grin. "If it were, you'd already be dead." Night fell over the academy. Alex moved quietly. Through the empty hallways, avoiding security, drones, and night patrols, he reached the storage room, its door already unlocked. Inside, Kareth was waiting, arms crossed, his fanged trophy glinting faintly in the low light. "You could have killed me today," Kareth said without preamble. Alex leaned against a crate. "You could have killed me too." Kareth shook his head. "No, not without losing more than I wanted." There was a pause. "I wasn't sent here just to fight you, human," Kareth continued. "I was sent here to learn about you, too. See if the stories were true." Alex's grin returned faintly. "Stories that humans are dangerous," Kareth said, "not because of strength or weapons. But because of this," he tapped the side of his head. "And this," he tapped his chest. Alex didn't answer right away. Instead, he crossed his arms. "And now you've decided what?" Kareth's voice dropped. "That they're true, and that you're being hunted for a reason." Alex glanced toward the door. "By who?" Kareth's gaze was dark. "By someone who was here today, watching from the fence. They weren't a student, and they moved like a killer. Alex's jaw tightened. Then we find them. Kareth tilted his head. Why should I help you? Alex's grin came back, but it was colder this time. Because if they kill me, you'll never get to find out how this fight between us really ends. The Deathworlder chuckled once, low and rough. Fair enough. They shook hands, Alex's grip firm, Kareth's like steel. For the first time, Predator and Predator weren't enemies. They were hunting together that night. Long after they left the storage room, a figure moved silently through the Academy's dorm hallways. A long blade glinted faintly under the moonlight filtering through the windows, and it was heading toward Alex's room. The Academy was silent. Too silent most nights. You could at least hear the distant hum of alien students talking in their dorms, the clatter of claws on metal flooring, or the soft drone of cleaning bots moving through the halls. Tonight, nothing. Alex lay in bed, eyes open in the dark. His instincts were pre-rickling. Footsteps. Slow, careful, whoever it was. They were trying not to be heard, but Alex had lived long enough on Earth to know the sound of someone hunting. He slid silently out of bed, his bare feet making no noise on the floor. He didn't turn on the lights, didn't want to give away that he was awake. The footsteps stopped outside his door. A faint scrape of metal. It's the sound of the lock being worked from the outside. Alex reached under his pillow and pulled out a short, flat piece of metal, not exactly a weapon, but enough for what he needed. The door slid open, just enough for a shadow to slip inside. The figure was dressed in dark, matte fabric that swallowed the light. Their face was hidden behind a smooth mask, and in their hand was a long, curved blade. They closed the door behind them without a sound. Alex didn't wait. He stepped forward, catching the intruder off guard, slamming his shoulder into their chest. The blade swung wide, slicing through the edge of his blanket instead of his ribs. The assassin staggered back, but recovered fast, spinning the blade into a reverse grip. They moved in silence. No heavy breaths, no curses, no wasted motion. This was someone trained for one thing: killing. Alex blocked the first slash with his improvised weapon, then ducked the second. The assassin's speed was unnatural, but Alex had speed too, and something else. He could read them. Every feint, every shift of the assassin's shoulders told Alex what was coming next. He ducked low, swept their legs, and sent them crashing to the floor. The blade clattered away. Alex lunged for it, but the assassin rolled, grabbing the weapon again before he could reach it. They were back on their feet in an instant. The fight turned brutal. No flashy moves. No wasted time. Just sharp, efficient violence. Alex landed a punch to the assassin's ribs. The assassin slammed an elbow into Alex's jaw. Blood sprayed from a shallow cut on Alex's arm. The assassin's breathing finally began to quicken. Then it happened. In a desperate move, Alex grabbed the assassin's wrist mid-swing, yanked them forward, and ripped the mask from their face. The world seemed to freeze for a moment. It wasn't an alien. It was a human. The assassin's eyes widened, not with fear, but with recognition. "Alex Mercer," they said, their voice cold and calm. "You know my name," Alex replied, still gripping their wrist. "I was sent to kill you," the assassin said flatly, "and I don't fail." Before Alex could respond, the door burst open. Kareth charged in, his claws gleaming under the dim hallway lights. With a single swipe, he knocked the blade from the assassin's hand. The human killer twisted away, flipping over a storage crate and disappearing into the corridor before Kareth could grab them. Alex stood still, breathing hard. Kareth turned to him. "That was a human," the Deathworlder said, his voice low with disbelief. "Yeah," Alex replied, rubbing the cut on his arm. "Which means this is a lot bigger than I thought." Kareth's gaze was cold now, bigger, and closer to home. Alex looked at the doorway where the assassin had vanished. "They won't stop." "No," Kareth agreed. "Which means we go after them before they come back." Far from the Academy, in the dark cockpit of a small stealth ship, the assassin removed their mask and spoke into a cum. "Target still alive. Engaging Phase 2. A deep voice answered through static. Then burn the whole school if you have to. The first explosion hit just before dawn. A deep rolling boom shook the walls of the academy, rattling Alex awake. He was already on his feet before the second blast followed, closer this time. The shockwave knocking a few loose items off his desk. Screams echoed in the hallways. Kareth's voice came through Alex's cum, rough and urgent. "They're here. Arm yourself and get to the West Wing now." Alex didn't bother asking questions. He grabbed his jacket and the short metal bar he'd been using as a weapon. It wasn't much, but right now speed mattered more than firepower. He burst into the hallway to find chaos. Students of every shape and species ran in all directions. Some had blood on them. Some carried injured friends. Security drones zipped past, lights flashing red dot in the distance. Fire poured from a shattered wall where one of the blasts had hit. Smoke rolled down the corridor like a living thing. Alex pushed through the crowd, heading for the West Wing. Halfway there, a figure stepped out from a side hallway, a tall, masked shape holding a compact rifle. The same assassin from last night. They raised the weapon. Alex dove behind a row of lockers, just as a spray of sizzling plasma rounds tore into the wall where his head had been. "Still alive?" The assassin's voice called, calm as ever.
What?
For long, Alex stayed low, moving along the lockers until he found a gap. He picked up a loose chunk of metal from the floor and hurled it at the ceiling light. Above the assassin, the fixture shattered, raining sparks. The assassin flinched just enough for Alex to charge. They collided hard, slamming into the wall.
Ow.
Rifle clattered away. Alex grabbed the assassin's arm, twisting, but the assassin countered with a knee to his ribs. Pain flared through Alex's side, but he didn't let go. A roar thundered from the end of the hallway, and Kareth appeared. Charging like a predator unleashed, the assassin reacted fast, rolling away from Alex and drawing a short blade from their belt. Kareth swung, claws, meeting steel, sparks flying. The two locked in a deadly dance, predator versus predator. Alex didn't waste the chance. He dove for the fallen rifle, scooped it up, and leveled it at the assassin. Before he could fire, the assassin slammed a small disc into the wall. It beeped once, then began flashing red. Alex's eyes widened. Bomb. The assassin kicked Kareth back and leapt through a side door, disappearing into the smoke. Kareth was already running toward Alex. "Move." They sprinted down the hallway just as the bomb detonated. The shockwave hurled them forward, the heat licking at their backs. The blast tore open another section of the academy wall, letting in the cold morning air. Outside, the campus was a battlefield. Flames climbed the sides of buildings. Shapes moved through the smoke, more masked figures, armed and efficient. They weren't random killers. They were a strike team. Alex kept his rifle ready. "They're not here just for me." Kareth's jaw tightened. "No, they're here to make sure no one walks out alive." The two moved together, covering each other as they crossed the open courtyard. They picked off attackers when they could, ducking behind cover when plasma bolts burned past their heads. Alex noticed something. The attackers were avoiding certain buildings. Not the dorms, not the library, the administration tower. They're heading for the principal's office. Alex realized aloud. Kareth glanced at him. "Why, I don't know," Alex said, checking the rifle's charge. "But I bet it's connected to why they want me dead." They fought their way to the tower. Inside, smoke filled the narrow halls. The sound of gunfire echoed above. They climbed the stairs two at a time, Kareth's heavy steps shaking the metal. On the third floor, they found the principal's door already blown off its hinges. Inside, the assassin from before stood by a shattered desk, pulling a data core from a hidden compartment. Alex raised his rifle. "Drop it." The assassin didn't even turn around. "You don't know what you're protecting, Mercer? This file destroys you." Kareth took a step forward, but the assassin pressed another disc to the floor, a larger one, blinking faster. Alex swore. Another bomb. The assassin looked over their shoulder, eyes cold. "Goodbye, Alex." Then they were gone. Leaping through the window into the smoke below, Alex and Kareth didn't hesitate. They bolted down the hallway as the bomb's beeping quickened. The explosion ripped through the tower, sending glass and debris cascading down. The shockwave nearly knocked them from the stairs. But they managed to stagger outside just before the top floors collapsed in flames, far off through the thick smoke. Alex caught sight of the assassin boarding a small black shuttle. The ship rose into the sky, vanishing into the clouds. Kareth stood beside him, breathing hard. This isn't over. Alex's grin returned even through the exhaustion. No, now it's war. Somewhere beyond the planet's atmosphere. The assassin handed the stolen data core to a figure in a dark command chair. The voice that answered was deep and cold. Now we have what we need. Prepare the fleet. The world shook. Alex woke to the sound of glass shattering. An orange glow lit the wall across from his bed, flickering like a heartbeat. Then came the second blast. The shockwave rolled through the dormitory, knocking books off shelves and sending a hairline crack crawling up the wall. Screams echoed from the hallway. Kareth's voice crackled through Alex's cum, low and urgent. They're here. The assassins brought help. Get out, now. Alex didn't waste time with questions. He snatched his jacket and the short length of pipe he kept by his bed. Not much. Better than nothing. The moment he opened his door, the chaos hit him. Alien students ran in every direction, some dragging wounded friends, others too panicked to think. The air smelled of smoke and melted metal. Security drones zipped overhead, their alarms screaming. A blast door at the end of the corridor was half melted, glowing red at the edges. Then Alex saw the first attacker, a tall figure in matte black armor, face hidden behind a smooth mask. In their hands, a compact plasma rifle. They spotted him instantly. Alex dove just as a burst of sizzling bolts ripped through the wall where his chest had been. He rolled behind an overturned table. Pounding. The attacker moved forward, slow and deliberate, a predator that knew its prey couldn't escape. Alex waited until they rounded the corner, then hurled the length of pipe with all his strength. It struck the rifle, knocking it sideways. Just as the weapon fired, scorching a hole in the floor, Alex charged. They met in a violent tangle, trading blows in the smoke-filled corridor. The attacker fought with brutal efficiency, elbows, knees, quick strikes meant to cripple. Alex managed to twist their arm and slam them against the wall, but they slipped away with inhuman speed, retreating toward the end of the hall. That's when Kareth arrived. The Deathworlder crashed into the scene like a living tank, claws flashing. The attacker didn't even try to fight him head-on. They threw a small blinking disc at the floor. Alex's gut tightened. Bomb. The three of them scattered. Explosion tore through the corridor, blowing out part of the exterior wall, and letting freezing morning air rush in. When Alex looked up, the attacker was gone. Outside the breach, the academy grounds were unrecognizable. Flames licked at shattered buildings. Smoke curled up into a gray, churning sky. More masked figures moved through the chaos, firing on anything that moved. Students were being herded into groups, not rescued, but captured. They're not just here to kill, Alex realized, his voice low. They're taking people. Kareth's eyes narrowed. Then we take them back. The two moved together, cutting across the courtyard. Alex grabbed a fallen rifle from a dead attacker, checking the charge. A group of masked figures spotted them and opened fire. Alex and Kareth ducked behind a collapsed support beam, turning shots. The smell of scorched metal and burning plastic was everywhere. They fought their way toward the admin tower. Alex had noticed something strange. The attackers avoided certain areas, but they were pouring into that tower like it was their real target. The moment they stepped inside, the air was hotter, thicker, with smoke. Plasma bolts flashed between the shadows. Somewhere above them, a heavy door slammed shut. They found the assassin on the top floor, the same smooth mask, the same deadly calm. They were holding a small black device, a data core, freshly pulled from a hidden compartment in the principal's desk. Alex leveled his rifle. Put it down. The assassin tilted their head. You don't know what you're protecting, Mercer. This holds your death in writing. Kareth took a step forward, but the assassin pressed another blinking disc to the wall. Alex swore. Another bomb. The assassin stepped backward toward the shattered window. You survived too much, they said quietly. Let's see. How you survived this? When they were gone, dropping into the smoke below, the beeping quickened. Alex and Kareth ran. The blast ripped the top floors apart, showering the courtyard with burning debris. The two of them barely made it outside before the tower collapsed in on itself, sending a column of smoke into the sky. Alex spotted the assassin far away now, boarding a small black shuttle at the edge of the academy grounds. The shuttle rose, cutting through the clouds, leaving nothing but fire and ruin below. Kareth stood beside him, chest heaving. They'll be back. Alex grinned, despite the destruction. Good. So will we. High above the planet, inside the shuttle, the assassin knelt before a shadowed figure in a command chair. The assassin handed over the stolen data core. It's done. The boy will burn with the rest of them. The shadowed figure's voice was deep, cold, and certain. No, he's not dead. Not yet. Prepare the fleet.